Okay, well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our Tourism Summit 2021, the virtual edition. We're excited to start our Deep Community Conversations webinar series during National Travel and Tourism Week. So I'm Vic Isley, President and CEO of Explore Asheville, and have been so pleased to be a part of this special community since December 1st, when I started with the organization. Since then, I've been on a listening tour to hear what community leaders throughout Asheville and Buncombe counties of their priorities. So here's a word cloud that just gives you an idea of capturing some of those nearly 200 conversations that I've had the fortune to have. So diversity and inclusiveness are certainly on the minds of our population here. Balance seems to be the word of 2021, including community, storytelling, thinking about the environmental impact, and thrive is definitely a word that's used here often in our community. When thinking about tourism priorities specifically, diversity and inclusiveness is meaning inviting more diverse audiences to our community. And in doing so, making sure there are more opportunities for all to win through tourism. That word balance means inviting visitors throughout our seasons, as well as dispersing visitors throughout our community. So they have an experience throughout the county, and those dollars are also spending in businesses throughout our community. Prioritizing overnight travelers and increasing the length of stay. So visitors, again, are experiencing more of our destination, and there's less wear and tear on the infrastructure here. We want to include community to drive community good and talk about and demonstrate shared benefits. We also want to humanize the tourism community. That goes back to that storytelling and being a positive voice in our area. And we want to feature people, not just numbers. After all, travel is a very personal and human experience that we've all been missing, I think, over the last year. But thankfully, we're seeing the return of travel and that emotional benefit we get as humans from that. And then also importantly, people are so much about the experience delivery here in our community. We want to manage and mitigate the environmental impacts of the success from tourism and really think about sustainability. We want to focus on destination management while we grow tourism, and importantly, align our proactive group sales efforts with the traditional economic development sectors that our community is focused on. And we're going to talk about that in a little bit with our panelists. So one of the questions that I've had entering into Asheville and Buncombe County is, what are the broader community goals for our area? So I've been working with folks to understand the strategic areas of focus for our stakeholders and partners. There's a focusing on a vibrant economy, resident well-being, environmental and energy stewardship, as well as focusing on an educated and capable community. These are the areas of focus for Buncombe County. Across there, you can also see the Asheville City Council focus areas and how they're aligning with county goals. And then what is the Buncombe County Tourism Development Authority's role within the broader community? We have the Asheville Greater Plan that the Chamber of Commerce took the community through, visioning there. And also looking at our partners with UNC Asheville, the Dogwood Health Trust, United Way, and the Community Foundation. It is a bit of an eye chart, but it does give us a sense of the roles that we all have to play within our community towards mutual success. So here are the strategic imperatives that the Explore Asheville team and the Buncombe County Tourism Development Authority Board have adopted, thinking about those broader community goals and tourism's role in it, is to deliver balanced recovery and sustainable growth, encourage safe and responsible travel, engage and invite more diverse audiences, and promote and support Asheville's creative spirit. So over this week and next week, we'll have community panel conversations that talk about how we work together to deliver on these 4 strategic pillars. But today, we're going to focus on balanced and sustainable growth. So what does that mean? It means that we want to balance resident and visitor needs, recognizing the necessary role that sustainable long-term growth of travel has in achieving a healthy collective economy for our community. And we want to focus on the quality of each visit to our community, balancing growth throughout the seasons, balancing business and leisure travel, and balancing those visits throughout Asheville and Buncombe County. So that quality of each visit to our community is the quality of visit for the visitor, and importantly, the quality of each visit to our community and the benefits that travel provides. So today with our esteemed panelists, we're going to focus on this red quadrant here in that balanced recovery and sustainable growth and a vibrant economy. I'm really pleased to have a powerhouse panel of women leaders for our community with us this afternoon. So Nancy Campbell, Chancellor of UNC Asheville, Debra Campbell, the City Manager for Asheville, Kit Cramer, CEO for the Asheville Area Chamber of Commerce, and Avril Pinder, County Manager for Buncombe County. So now we're going to bring our esteemed panelists on with us here. So ladies, thank you for joining us today. Really am excited for our conversation. So we're going to start our talk today with Nancy. We'll start with you in the Hollywood Squares world that we're still in my top left screen. So what are the priorities for UNC Asheville, and what are those strategic areas of focus that you're really working towards?
Thanks, Vic. In fact, thanks for your leadership in bringing us together today. I think some of you are aware that the University of North Carolina, Asheville is entering a period of growth, of innovation, and of strengthening our fiscal capacity. The ways in which we wish to do that are very widespread and very diverse. Let me give you a couple of examples. We will grow modestly our student body from roughly 3,500 now to 4,000, and we will do that with an equity lens in not only the way that we craft a class that's more diverse, both ethnically, life experience, socioeconomically, but we will be adding faculty and staff to the institution over the coming years. We'll be adding some very innovative master's degrees, particularly we hope in climate science, in creative writing, now that we have attained the Wilma Dykeman House. And I could go on in terms of the academic areas of growth. All of those will represent opportunities for intersection with a variety of individuals in this community. We're very glad that we were able to maintain employee continuity across the university through the entire time of COVID. We currently have 745 employees. We expect that to grow again modestly, closer to 775 or even 800. And all of that will add to the racial diversity within our area, the ethnic representation, including international students and faculty of international background. So that will be contributing in a variety of ways. And we believe, in addition to the roughly 10,000 persons who come to the university, most staying at least one night, sometimes more, whether they're coming for admissions or athletic or for commencement weekend, as we had with our honorary degree recipients, We want to partner in every way with all the groups on this call to make sure that all the persons in our region benefit from these areas. We will be embarking upon a very large fundraising effort. We're in a private phase at this point, but already have raised $25 million, mostly from people in the region. Some of that is to leverage the human capital of our student body and of our faculty and staff. We want to be a key player, a key resource to all of the organizations. We've just won from the Board of Governors the designation to be a millennial campus. That allows us to use some of our land holdings in public-private partnerships. All of that will be done in a way that we think should be much more integrating of our community's activities and bringing more persons in the area closer to the university itself. We also will be adding a number of certificates, additional graduate degrees, as I mentioned, using just 2 examples. But those things will also, I think, make us much more resonant with the needs of both the nonprofit and the for-profit community in Buncombe and Asheville. One example is that of the almost 80 students we graduated this weekend in engineering, about 75% of those students are staying here, and they're employed in the 5 and will be 6 engineering companies. So Vic, we're proud to say that we endorse the kind of balanced growth, responsible, inclusive growth, and greater diversity, and we want to be a key partner to all those in the area. Thank you, Vic.
Thank you, Nancy. That's fabulous. And congratulations on graduation this weekend. Certainly nice to see. What are your strategic areas of focus?
I'm sorry, who are you talking to, Vic? You had a skip in there.
Avril.
Avril.
Thank you.
Thanks, Vic. Thanks for having us. As you know, here in Buncombe County, we have a strategic plan. So our Board of Commissioners have laid out for us what our top priorities are. And you mentioned them in your slide earlier as well. We have 4 top focus areas: the educated and capable community, resident well-being, vibrant economy, and energy and environmental stewardship. Last December, our board did a retreat and really honed in on their top 3 priorities. And they said for the upcoming year, we're going to focus on early childhood education, economic development, affordable housing. And if you went to the top 5, they added broadband and energy stewardship. So how does that relate really to vibrant economy? For us, and talking about our top priorities, early childhood, if we can start that early and making sure our kids are graduating from high school and setting that foundation early, that's one thing we want to focus on. How can we make sure that leaders of the future, we really have good students in the future and good employees? So we want to really start on that early childhood education piece. The economic development piece, we partner with KIT and the Economic Development Coalition to really talk about bringing jobs to our community, good paying jobs. Our goals there are right around increasing our rate of wages for our employees. We always struggle below North Carolina benchmark. We want to be at least at the state level or higher. So we're focusing on education and economic development. Affordable housing, that has continued to struggle here in Buncombe County. I saw a recent article in the Citizen Times talking about our quality, our cost of living here in the county is one of the highest around all metro. And that has a lot to do with the price of housing. So we are focusing this year on affordable housing. We have a affordable housing committee with commissioners that we really focus on what projects are coming to town. How can we increase not just the 80% median income, but can we even go lower and talk about workforce housing, not just affordable housing, but workforce housing, because we know that people go to work every day and they still can't afford to live here. So that's one of our priorities as well. And when I talked about the top 5, we added broadband as a priority. We know that this pandemic showed that people needed to go home quickly and work from home, but internet and internet access was a struggle for many. So working around broadband and making that a priority is also one of our top priorities for this next year coming up. So I would say those are the top priorities of our board and where we're trying to head in the next fiscal year, which starts July 1 for us. And I'll pass it back to you, Vic.
Thank you. Thank you, Avril. And Debra, how about at the city?
Sure, thank you, Vic, first, and then good afternoon, everyone. And thanks for inviting me to participate on the panel with these other amazing female leaders representing City of Asheville and Buncombe County. And so what are our top priorities? Of course, the people of Asheville and my 7-member elected board creates the priorities for me. My role is to help implement the priorities, identify strategies and path forward as it relates to implementation, and also to advocate for the necessary resources that are needed to achieve our priorities. So I think you earlier showed all of the priorities that were adopted in 2016 by the City of Asheville. And you focused on a thriving local economy, or at least that's what we're focusing on today, in the financial resilient city. But I also want to just give a nod to those other things as well. As you heard Avril talk about affordable housing, that is also a priority for the City of Asheville. Transportation and accessibility, being a well-planned and livable community, a clean and healthy environment, an equitable and diverse community, and a connected and engaged community. But kind of the pillars, underpinning foundation of our ability to achieve those other things, like affordable housing and transportation, is around having a thriving and a local economy and being a financially resilient city. And if we don't have the resources, we just cannot achieve all those other things that we desire and need to achieve. Just like Avril, at our board's retreat this year, Council adopted some additional initiatives and focus areas. And this is really in response to the 2 crises that have occurred in our country and in our city around a public health pandemic and social and racial unrest. And so the other priorities that were identified related to reparations, and we really want to look at this as being really linked to having a resilient and thriving economy around equity. And we think that our initiative around reparations is about access and opportunity. It's not about charity. Reimagining public safety is one that really is responding to the social and racial unrest that we experienced. And quite frankly, if we don't reimagine ourselves, we will continue to experience. Under that goal, it is broadening our concept and our perception of safety, our community safety. You know, we were very fortunate to have some great facilitators, as well as conversations with the community about public safety, to broaden it to be bigger than a police officer, which it is. It involves all of those other things that we talked about in terms of affordable housing and feeling secure in your own neighborhood, your ability to have a sidewalk to walk down the street. So communities and streetlights. So that reimagining public safety is about the broader conceptual idea of community safety, having safe communities, safe business areas, and just overall a safe community. Another priority, which I'm actually very pleased that Council understands, that how they compensate their employees is extremely important for us to attract and retain the best and the brightest. That's our goal. How do we keep and again recruit workers that can execute the tremendous number of initiatives that we have underway in our community and do them well. And to do that, we've got to compete in the marketplace, like with Buncombe County, who continues to steal my, I'm sorry, I didn't mean that. I digressed, I'm sorry.
I see she still has problems.
We have a friendly rivalry for talent. And then lastly, they adopted a focus on the receipt of federal relief funding related to COVID and how we utilize and prioritize the use of that funding, and how do we do the community outreach to hopefully ensure that the most impacted community actually receives the reinvestment. So I'll stop there.
Thank you, Debra. And where there's healthy friction, there's energy. So that's a good thing. Kit, how about at the chamber? What are the top priorities for your organization and your team?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me. You know, you mentioned the AVL Greater Plan, and it strikes me that none of you were in town when we did the AVL Greater Plan. There has been such a huge shift in leadership in this community, and look at the number of strong women we have. I think that's outstanding. But it also then amazes me to see the threads that we discovered through the AVL Greater process running through everybody else's priorities. I think we have general agreement on the types of priorities that we must have. From AVL Greater, we developed AVL 5x5. This is our third iteration of that strategy. And the focus, the core value that we focused upon is on economic sustainability. And that means being good for people, being good for place, and being good for prosperity. And that prosperity should not be limited to a certain social class or a certain race of people. So when we talk about the priorities that we've established through AVL 5x5, we're really focusing on growing wages and opportunity, as Avril has already mentioned, and to do it in a way where it's shared prosperity, it's throughout the community, because there are folks in this community who have not experienced the level of prosperity that others have. So we're paying that special attention. But we also are looking at those physical infrastructure, and I shouldn't just say physical, because infrastructure is a lot of things. Infrastructure is a beefy educational system from cradle to grave. It's every type of infrastructure, from broadband, access to broadband, to a robust transportation system. It's being able to focus on working with Asheville as a hub of a regional economy and working collaboratively with the other counties in our MSA to make sure that we're functioning well. And it's also working with the broad array of organizations, including everyone on this town hall, but also with other organizations that specialize in dealing with specific types of issues that we may not be the strongest at. Around workforce in particular, which is a point of real concern for all types of business at the moment, but needs to be a concern always, so that we have the best prepared workers and the best prepared children in order to go into the workforce or into life and live the lives that they want to live. So, and I would also summarize by saying that we're very much about diversification. We've got a lot of wonderful assets in this community, and they are all intertwined with one another. We've seen that through the last pandemic. When one aspect of the economy is impacted, the others are impacted. And I think we've discovered that we all rely upon one another. So continuing that diversification, making sure we don't have all our eggs in one basket is another priority as well.
Thank you, Kit. I think looking at that diversification is something that the tourism community here certainly supports, is that we want to be a thriving part of the economy, but not the sole economy. And that's one of the reasons that we have adopted looking at our proactive group sales efforts in alignment and in support of our traditional economic development partners. So those 5 sectors that you've identified, as well as Avril and her team and others, which are advanced manufacturing, outdoor products, which certainly support our outdoor economy, life sciences, climate, environment, and then to a lesser degree on our side, office and technology. But if our team and our partners can be successful in prospecting in those sectors to have executive retreats here, their incentive trips for their high-performing employees, conferences that will attract thought leaders in those spaces, then basically we're creating a prospecting pool for you as our economic development partners. And as they say, you know, still to this day, the best way to sell a car is a test drive, and that travel and tourism is a test drive for a community. And hopefully we can be good partners in building a pipeline that's going to create more diversification within the economy and those diverse jobs. So we certainly support that. So Avril, I think you've covered some space in this area, but going from priorities now down into strategies, are there particular strategies that your team is focusing on in rebuilding that resilient and thriving economy?
Yes, and as you know, we've been working again around bringing jobs to Buncombe County, especially jobs. We do have an incentive policy where we can begin to bring jobs, and you've seen the announcements that we've made in partnership with the others on this call, the announcements that we made this past year in 2020. Going forward, one of the things that we will love to see talked about a little bit, and every single one so far has mentioned that equity piece. We would like to see where when a visitor does come to Buncombe County, that it is throughout the county, not just in Asheville or in downtown, but how can we make sure they're also here to see the view sheds, and we're distributing that visitor throughout the county. We've added visit and see farms, so there's farm tours that can be added. We added different heritage parks with our farm app that you can look at farms and you can do that table or the food. I want to say the farm to table part where you can get to the actual farms and see your food before you can actually eat it in the restaurants. So how do we move visitors throughout the community? And we also want to talk about the small business. I think Kit said earlier that we are a community of small businesses, where how can we make sure when you do that itinerary for visitors come in, you're incorporating visits to the small businesses. So our strategies will be how can we improve that small business owner part of tourism, as well as the view sheds and the farms that are out in the community. How can we add those? As well as we continue to incentivize businesses come into the area. So we will continue to work hand in hand with our incentive policies to making sure we are incentivizing high-paying jobs, making sure that we can partner and be ready anytime there's a call. How can we make sure we're ready to showcase what's happening here in Buncombe County? So those are the strategies that we're looking at first and foremost, making sure we're having that focused on bringing high-paying jobs to the community.
Thank you. Nancy, turning towards the university, I know that you've been very, very poignant in your plan to be tied to community here, is to not just be the campus, but be a part of the community. So what are your priorities as it relates to being a part of the local economy and community here?
Thanks, Vic. And I would remind all of us that we're standing on the shoulders of university leaders, faculty, and staff for many years. Think of Dwight Mullen's role, think of Debra Miles's role, more recently Darren Waters' role, and I could name lots and lots of folks. But I think I put our priorities into 3 buckets, and I hope this helps you to think of the university as a resource to be used. Because every time you have research to be done, or facilitation to be done, like I hope we will be helping with reparations work, for example, Debra. Every time you have a problem to solve, I have students whose education depends on helping you solve your problem. So we offer three things. One is human capital through our students. They can be interns, they can be unpaid volunteers, they can be social activists for the issues that you have within your own agency, whether it's with your board all the way through to the persons that you serve. That human capital is available to you and only augments our ability to meet our educational mission and to do our work with real meaning in today's world. We are not a place that's up on the hill and with an ivy around it. We are a 21st century university that has human capital in the form of students, outstanding faculty, and so on. The second is we have the intellectual capital to assist in teaching others or problem solving or bringing data to bear. And so we've got that intellectual expertise that even if we don't know how to do it per se, we can partner with you helping others in your organizations or intra-organization work learn what works best or evaluate what's been tried. The third is capital resources. We have a place as a state institution that's here to serve our region. And we are open for business to do that well, whether it's hosting events on our campus that can be no cost or low cost, or to provide the equipment that you need for scientific work, whatever that might be to move this forward. And the last is the social and community capital. Our Center for Health and Wellness, for example, knows almost every public health connection in the 21 counties of the West, basically west of I-77. That's just one example. We're related to the schools. Our expertise in medicine and public health means we're already connected to the Latinx community that's just outside Asheville. Let's use the connections that the university has to get serious about this idea of inclusion, inclusivity, and work for equity and equality in all of the work that we do together. There's a synergy and partnership given these resources from the university that we are ready to give and to partner with you.
Great, thank you. Kit, at the Chamber with you and Clark at the EDC, what are those top priorities that you're really focused on day in and day out?
Well, we're all about growing business in a variety of forms. We are a small business community. But again, from a diversification standpoint, you want a broad array of businesses and a broad array of industries. So we nurture local growth by, and in the sectors where we've got specific strength in our workforce. We have a really interesting chart that shows where we are especially strong. And one of those is advanced manufacturing. And so that's why you often hear about announcements of new businesses coming to the area. But then we also want to help grow small businesses locally. We call them the next headquartered company, because there is something about the decision-making that resides in a headquarters company that is right here in this region that is especially powerful in terms of their corporate citizenship and the way that they engage their employees. So we're all about growing small businesses that could be fast growing. We want to support the everyday small business as well. And there are lots of them here. I mean, I was amazed at the creativity that was shown during the pandemic by so many of our small businesses who really depend on tourism specifically. And we want to help them grow and keep their saws as sharp as they possibly can be. We also want to strengthen the workforce systems in collaboration with our community partners, because so that means everything from early childhood education to supporting great K-12 systems and the dominant higher education system that North Carolina has always been known for, but also working in partnership with entities like the cities Housing Authority or the Spark Foundation and others, many, many others, AB Tech, who are working with us on the Inclusive Hiring Partners program, where we're matching employers who need people to work in jobs that have great career ladders with individuals who may have lived in generational poverty in the past, or they may have had a history of domestic abuse or involvement with substance abuse, and try and help those folks overcome those barriers by surrounding them with a whole network of support. Because we need workforce, and everybody needs to be able to participate in that growth and in the opportunities for prosperity. And then another area that we're very strong in, I mean, you may read about the Pratt and Whitney types of developments that we attract. I mean, that was a whopper of a project, but so many of our announcements are about expanding existing business, which is quite it's a real privilege to be able to work with the expansion of a business, because it means they're having a positive enough experience here. They're finding the workforce they need and the support from all our community partners to make that business viable. So we're doing all of those things, as well as this year we're embarking on an inventory of sites and buildings we've actually already embarked on it. We're going to be deepening that over our 5-year period of this plan, where we're really assessing where parcels of land can be put together for the recruitment of additional businesses or the expansion of existing businesses. So those are the areas that we focus in. And I have to tell you, Vic, my staff is so excited to be working with yours on trying to leverage the strength of the tourism industry to bring in other folks. I mean, we had a wonderful experience a couple of years ago with GE's shareholder meeting out at Biltmore. We had more private planes, more people who are in super influential positions coming into this town at the same time to experience Asheville in a very unique way. And you were absolutely right. Getting them here to see Asheville is 3/4 of the job. If we can do that and then unleash our volunteers on them and other business people to tell our story, we have a great opportunity for success. So we really appreciate that collaboration with your staff.
Absolutely. You mentioned small businesses. One of the things, being here for a short period of time, but spending my time up and down the East Coast for different communities and destinations, is just how rich this community is with local businesses, entrepreneurial outfitters that really make the distinctness of this place, which is our 4th pillar about promoting and supporting Asheville's creative spirit. But one of the things about this local economy that I'm so impressed with is about how little leakage there is, which is such a gross word, but when you think about it in terms of economics, is that because 70 to 80% of the hotels here in Buncombe County are owned by locals, that means that more of those dollars are staying in this local community. They're not REITs that own these hotels. It's not Marriott in Bethesda, Maryland, that's bringing home all of the rewards. Those rewards are staying here in this community. And then going back, Avril, to your point about farmers, is that, again, that circular economy with our restaurants owners and chefs who are so supportive of local purveyors and farmers and makers, is that those dollars circulate longer in our community because they're not all going to Cisco. They're going to local purveyors and entrepreneurs who are making something from this land. And I just find that so valuable from an experience standpoint for a visitor, but so valuable for our local community and residents and workers as well. So Debra, turning our attention to the city and of the big picture strategic areas of focus, when you're thinking through the strategies in terms of that resilient economy and thriving economy for your residents, what are those strategies that you're putting into play?
Well, I've already mentioned in terms of cornerstones and underpinnings, but now I'm going to talk about the lens. I think the lens for us is all around equity. It has to be. We just feel so strongly that if we are laser focused on impacting the lives of people in our community, that traditionally where there haven't been an emphasis, and where we know that we are, you're talking about leakage, that we are missing out on opportunities, and we are missing out on allowing and helping those, I shouldn't say allowing, but helping those individuals be all in the best that they can be. So equity is fundamental in terms of our lens and our value. And so when we think about equity, we think about it first in terms of our own house. What are we doing as the city of Asheville to promote and support and advocate for equity? And we did a disparity study a couple of years ago that demonstrated that as an organization, we were not spending enough with Black and Brown businesses. And so that disparity study from a legal and a federal compliance perspective allows us to really focus now on increasing business, doing business with that population. And so the City Council adopted a business inclusion program, or I should say a policy, and then we have initiated a program to be extremely intentional and aggressive about recruiting Black and Brown businesses. So that's definitely one of our strategies. Another strategy, and it is fundamentally the bread and butter of city government, which is investments in capital infrastructure. That is, this community cannot survive without roads and clean water and sewer and all of those basic things that builds a community. And so we really are reflecting on our role and the fundamental service that we provide to this community from an infrastructure investment perspective. If you think about the success of the River Arts District, it was really around an infrastructure investment that turned that area around, again, to create the kind of economic activity and excitement. What we have to get better at, again, is understanding the trade-offs, that for every investment that is made, we need to ensure that that investment impacts a broader population, and that we do not displace or adversely impact the population and the business people that are in those areas currently now. So those are just kind of a few of our strategies. And I definitely also support the concept of diversification of our economy. We cannot put all of our eggs in the tourism basket. But what I will say, though, is if we are going to focus on tourism, and we should, because this is an incredible community to both live in and to visit. But I think we've got to look at the structure of what we pay our employees that are in this sector. We've also got to create jobs that lead to a career. It has to be a career path that we are creating, and not just random jobs. Those are good, and folks need jobs. But I think for long-term sustainability, they need careers.
Yeah.
I'll stop there.
Yeah, I agree on that, Debra. And that's one of the things that when I was going to school and I waited tables to make my due, and when I was in university, I didn't even know my job existed. So I think, my mom was a 6th grade school teacher and I'm in tourism. We all went to school, so we think we know how to fix education. We all travel, so we think we know tourism. And because when we're human and we interact, who we see is when we're traveling is we see the front desk person, we see the bellman, we see the person who's making our room clean because we act like we've lost our minds when we stay in hotel rooms instead of cleaning up like we do at home. But that is something that is, there are all kinds of jobs. There are HR jobs in tourism. There are social media jobs in tourism. There are finance jobs in tourism and travel. And US Travel did a study recently that if you start your career in travel, no matter whether you stay in travel or you go to a different sector, you make more money over the term of your career because you learn those soft skills. But importantly, to your point, is being able to show the journey and be able to map the career path so that students, whether they're 5th graders or high schoolers, or university students can see that pathway. So I wholeheartedly agree with that. And then just thinking about the River Arts District, that was a project that our team was so happy to support through our grant making side. But that was definitely an exercise in collaboration and shared vision over almost a decade, right? So $7.1 million, the TDA contributed to that project, but also $250,000 in wayfinding signage to help distribute visitors throughout that and residents throughout that area so that more businesses have the opportunity to win through that exploration of place. So I'll turn my attention, Avril, and toss it to you. I know that your team is going to be embarking upon a big comprehensive plan for land use for the county. Kit, I've heard you talk about what land is available. Debra, you've been talking about making sure and ensuring that when it is being used, it's through that equity lens. So Avril, looking at that land use plan or looking at your priorities for the county, we all have a role to play in those strategies. So sometimes we're a leader, sometimes we'll have a seat at the table, sometimes we'll just contribute. In other ways we'll support, like the River Arts District as an example. But what do you see tourism's role as in your efforts? How can we be able-bodied partners with you?
I heard you said something about grant money. Was that, no? Okay.
Yes, we've had good conversations about community projects that are good for tourism and tourism projects that are good for community. So that certainly is a lens and an opportunity.
In all seriousness, right now we are starting the steering committee for our comprehensive land use plan. So if anyone is interested, please make sure you fill that application out. We're looking for members to help guide, and we're looking for regular community members as well. So that's one role that you can play, because we do know that tourism is a large part of our GDP here in Buncombe County. So having a seat at the table to make sure, and I know there's a sentiment now that's good tourism or bad tourism. I want to make sure that voice is at the table to help us guide. We're talking about a 2040 plan for land use. So how do we make sure that is represented? So having that voice at the table would be important. But our comprehensive plan is really looking at that. There's no more land. They're not making more land. That's not something that we can generate and make. So making sure we have a plan of how to best develop that, where it is good for conservation issues, where it's good for farming, where it's good for tourism, where it's good for our locals to make sure we have a place to live. We talked earlier about affordable housing. So making sure that all those voices are at the table is what we're trying to make sure we have. So I believe the application closes on May 14th. So anyone listening on this call that has an interest in how Buncombe County develops going forward, we would encourage you to be at that table. Nancy, we are looking for someone from the college. So if you're, please put the application out, because we want to make sure that our youth is also at the table. So that's my plug for how people can be involved. But we want to make sure as we develop, Debra mentioned infrastructure, sewer, water. Our county doesn't have a lot of sewer because of our topography. So if we're going to be talking about development further out in the county, how do we do that responsibly? I know zoning is a terrible 4-letter word, but we need to talk about who's next to what and what goes where. And how do we look when we grow up 10 years from now, 20 years from now? Traffic is an issue that you hear quite a bit around. So how do we make sure that we plan for traffic and we build where there's already transportation and multimodal opportunities? So I think that plan is going to really shape what we do out in the county. You have, of course, your municipal districts, but when you leave the city, you get into the county, how do we make sure? And Shannon just corrected, it's May 17th. Thank you, Shannon. I got my staff. They're awesome. They keep me looking good. So thank you, Shannon. It is May 17th for the final for that plan. So I want to make sure that's out there. But our goal with that comp plan, and it's going to be a huge undertaking for us, it's going to be several years in the making. So as I said, put your name in the hat, but please know the commitment is about a 2-year commitment to serve on that steering committee. And our ideas would be, how can we incentivize growth, density, and Debra knows this better than I, because her background is that planning piece. So I'm way up my league here when I'm talking about planning words like density, right? But that will be our goal. How do we make sure we build in a sustainable way, in a systematic, thoughtful manner as we go into developing our land? And I think my time is up too, so.
Thank you, Avril. Nancy, at the university, how can tourism be good partners with you?
Well, we already are, but I think that we can deepen UNCA's impact on tourists in both intellectual and socially responsible ways. Part of that is the proper use of our land holdings. To Avril's point just a minute ago, we are very much hoping that we'll cooperate with a group of public entities here to create more and better responsible environmental stewardship around the river with Blue Link and the River Link and so on. We also hope that we will be a partner with a variety of organizations that feed the arts of this area, not just the visual arts and craft and design, but frankly feed the performing arts so that the diversity of musical culture can be key in this very already established musical hub that goes back literally more than 100 years or more than that. So I think we can be a key partner. I also believe that the university brings an interesting tool that we really all have and need to remind ourselves at this moment. And that is the moment of looking for opportunity gaps. Who's being left behind? Where have we gone with all good reason, planning, and intention, but inadvertently and unintendedly, we perhaps have left others behind? A great example is that we have literally thousands of persons in the 20 county region. We can certainly give some numbers to Asheville and Buncombe if I had them in front of me, of persons who have had some college but have not attained a degree. And we are working with Land of Sky, with the Board of Governors, with Nathan Ramsey's group, and with Western Carolina and all the community colleges to find those persons and give them an opportunity to complete their degree, which widens considerably the work opportunities and the career trajectories longer term that they've been denied before they could finish a degree or a certificate. So I would say the university can be a partner with any and all organizations across the area to find those opportunity gaps in our schools, in education, in healthcare, that give us a sense of lifting all in the process of lifting our future visions.
Thank you. Debra, how about the travel community and working in tandem and in alignment with the city?
So I want to echo what Nancy just said in terms of us already being partners. And I believe that the example that I gave about Rad Tip, about leveraging and partnerships and collaboration is just going to be the key to our community being heads and tail above other kinds of communities from a competitive perspective. But one thing I want to mention, and it's kind of the elephant in the room, Vic, but I'm gonna put it out there anyway. And a way that the tourism and TDA can assist the city of Asheville is in looking at the formula for the occupancy tax, which right now is a 75-25 split, with the majority going to marketing and 25% to capital. If we could get back to what most communities have in terms of that ratio of 66% to 33%, I think that reputationally and from an investment perspective, that will go a long way to continue to strengthen our relationship. And also looking at not just the ratio, but also how the funding can be spent. That is, now capital is capital. You got to build something. But once it's built, somebody got to maintain it. And right now we don't have the resources in order to do the maintenance. And so what I will say again, what RADTIP represents for us is the huge opportunity that we have when we leverage and we partner. We can make transformational change in our community. And I think that's where we ought to be. And that's what I would hope that as we move forward, we can do more of that as a community.
That's well noted, and really part of our exercise here and start of conversations in terms of looking at what the broader community goals are, what tourism's role is in that, and a shared vision of success. I think that is just so critical, and appreciate each of you for sharing your thoughts with us and starting that conversation openly today. So I want to make sure that if folks who are listening in have questions, you can drop them in the chat and we'll see if we can get to them in the 15 minutes we have remaining. Kit, question to you, and from traditional economic development and your relationship with the travel community, thoughts for collaboration beyond what we've discussed already today?
Well, first, we owe a debt of gratitude to the tourism industry for helping build Asheville's reputation and for really branding Asheville and in its many qualities so that it's become known. I wonder if I'm not being followed by this issue. When I was in Charlotte was confused with Charlottesville and Charleston, and they taught the CH factor. And when I got here, there was a whole lot of discussion about Asheville versus Nashville. People would think we were saying Nashville every time. Asheville now is known and is becoming increasingly well known, and we can thank the tourism community for that consolidation. And it did not happen. It's not an overnight kind of miracle that occurred. That is year after year of great work by a lot of people to make that happen. So it's really important that we remember that interrelatedness between the tourism industry, which, I mean, it preceded even the CVB. The mere fact that someone thought to take the Biltmore estate and turn it into a tourism destination was, that was a long, long time ago. And we need to be grateful for those types of things. But that exposure, that continued exposure that we provide to other types of leaders, whether it's through a vacation or it's bringing a child to camp or it's a conference that is occurring in the area, which then makes them think about the potential for relocation, is a really important factor for us. So we need to continue to buttress that relationship as well. And the involvement of leaders throughout the business community, throughout the tourism community specifically, on solving some of the issues that all business has is imperative. We've got some great minds in the business community, and I so appreciate. Vic, you alluded to the fact of how many owners of the hotels, for example, are local people. That is the difference between a headquartered company and a divisional headquarters. I mean, they're still great to have, but having those people who are personally invested in our schools, in our philanthropies, and in helping solve the problems, because Debra and Avril can't do it themselves. Nancy knows that too. I mean, the university system plays an incredibly important role in terms of informing and bringing young energy to the issues of today. And I really think that that's a way that the tourism leaders throughout the community can assist.
Thanks. I'll just open this up to the entire panel. So we have close to 90 tourism and community partners on the call with us today. So what do you need, or what would you want from our travel and tourism partners within the community? Any thoughts for their engagement? I mean, Avril, you mentioned you want all different voices as part of the comprehensive land use planning, and I see that you put the link in the chat to that, so we can also get that out to all participants on the call post this session. But any thoughts about our travel and tourism partners or individual community businesses?
Vic, excuse me, Avril.
Go ahead, Nancy, go ahead.
Yeah, I would say one of my colleagues, Allison Ornsby, who is one of our environmental leaders on campus and helped us with the 2050 carbon neutrality agreement that we're now in as a part of only 10% of the universities in the nation. I would like to see us be very intentional in a shared as well as an independent way on the Asheville and how we wish to be known for the future, which brings forward things like showcasing the collider and the climate science work of the university and the incredible outreach of our research on environmental issues, not just in the region, but globally. Asheville's the home of, it's the largest compilation of data on climate resiliency from NOAA, from NASA. These are really special hallmarks, and I'm just mentioning one. I think there are hundreds. But if we can focus on choosing the marketing topics as those we know are about the human condition forward, I think those kinds of things will ensure not only our humanity and reflect our values, but they'll ensure our prosperity for those things that draw the folks to this region who benefit from those kind of future values.
I mean, if I can add to that, we had the Climate City Expo was here in the past as one example of the way the tourism industry was supporting us in bringing thought leaders around sustainability. And so Nancy, I second that. I think that's a great idea.
One of the things the university has in the very early stages of planning is something that's very similar to the Aspen Ideas Festival, and to create an Asheville Ideas Festival, or Asheville Alive, and bring global, and I mean global, as well as national and regional leaders to showcase conversations and action eventually about many, many of the key issues. Water challenges, not so much in this area, but why can't we be part of the solution? Again, diverse performances of music and appreciation of culture through music and craft, climate, public health, and I could go on. But look for that, because we're getting real momentum around this idea of kind of a convening of persons, thought leaders leading us through conversations about this, and not for just an elite group of individuals, but for everyone in our region and the tourists who come to share in this with us.
Thank you, Nancy. And Avril, you were going to contribute something.
There were some questions coming into the chat, and Nancy touched on the one from Allison, so thank you for that. But there was also a comment in there that a lot of our ads are mostly white centered, and almost every single one on this panel today mentioned diversity and racial equity. And so I want to make sure that we're also intentional, and when we talk about our marketing, that people know that we are about diversity and inclusion here in Asheville. I didn't want to miss the point to talk about equity is also important to Buncombe County. And we've been working on a racial equity action plan to make sure that we are intentional in that. So one thing that the tourism industry can do for us, and you're nodding your head, so I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but absolutely, I think that is important for us. And we touched earlier as well on the wages. We want to make sure, and Debra called it a career, that even the jobs that they're having, not just a career, but the jobs they're having is also a living wage, that people can afford to live here in our community. So tourism is such a huge part of what we do. And that was so clear during this last pandemic when you had over 50% jobs and our economy came crashing. I want to make sure that when those people come back to work, that they can come back to work. And the partners, the 90 or so partners that we have, is looking to see how can we make sure they have a living wage for the job before it becomes a career.
Yes.
Yeah, Vic, if I could just add one last thing, and I know we're getting short on time, but one of the most recent questions that are comments that came in about local people are spending less and less of their time coming to Asheville to enjoy the opportunities that we have for tourists. Since I have come to this community, I have heard this same rhetoric. And you asked the question, what can those 90 folks that are out there in this industry do? They can make local people feel as welcomed and as needed and appreciated as they do their out of town folks. So creating opportunities where we go local, that we honor the people who already live in Asheville, that there are special coupons, anything that says to folks, because if you think about it, this is our home, and we have these visitors coming to our home, and most of us feel like they're pushing us out of our homes, and we don't like that. And we get this kind of tension. You said tension was healthy. Sometimes it's unhealthy. And unfortunately, it casts a negative light on an industry that is unwarranted. But we've just got to do better at balancing, because I think that's one of your things, balancing the interests of our local people and their sense of place. And as we invite people from outside of our community into our community, they have to respect it first and foremost. But secondly, we need to more collectively appreciate the investment that our own local people are making in our community.
I believe that balance is so critical. And when the power of travel to me, and what's driven me is in my life as well as my career, is that the power of travel is people. Is that people, we as people are the ones that are being drawn to travel ourselves, to experience new places, to connect with people and cultures. And it is the people that deliver that experience when you go to a community. The economic vitality that comes from it is the healthy economy byproduct of that exchange. But at the core, it's people. And so we really need to remember that and take that forward. I thank each of you for starting this conversation, to be brave enough for us to have it in public, to hold each other accountable and be held accountable by our community. I was having a conversation a couple of weeks ago at a RADTIP event where someone said, Vic, I'm just not sure what the leadership voice of Asheville is. And I hope that today is the start of being able to have open dialogue, to build trust with one another, with our community, to be able to move forward for all, for all people to win. And I appreciate each of you and your openness to do so. With that, I'm going to hopefully share my screen again to close us out.
Well, Vic, before you go there and close out, I do want to put a plug in to please get your vaccine. That is the fastest way that we know to get the economy back and to get people back out moving again. So as the department that has public health, I want to make sure I put that plug out there. Please get your vaccine. You don't have to have an appointment. You can just walk into AB Tech. It is open. Please, please, please. That's how we can get our economy back. Even before tourists comes back and we're exposing ourselves going downtown or anywhere in our community, please be mindful. So with that, I'll let you go and wrap us up. Thank you.
Avril, there couldn't be a better plug for people to round us out here, and just to say again, it goes back to people and keeping our residents safe, our experience delivery team that is working, throughout our tourism community and businesses, as well as our visitors, is that we really just need to make sure that we respect and care for our natural resources that have brought people here for so many generations, but also the human resources here. So thank you for that reminder. So with that, I'm hoping this is going to work. We'll see. So if you've enjoyed today's talk, we have 3 more coming up, and you can go to AshevilleCVB.com and under what's new on the homepage to register for the 3 remaining discussions. Wednesday this week is on encouraging safe and responsible travel, and that's from noon to 1:15. And we look forward to another distinguished panel of experts throughout. Next Monday, May 17th, we have engaging and inviting more diverse audiences, which we certainly teed up for today's talk. And then rounding us out is promote and support Asheville's creative spirit. So please sign up, and we look forward to seeing you on these calls and also in person very soon. So thank you all so much for your time, and have a great rest of the day. Make it a great week.